The bride who married her enemy. The cathedral doors burst open. Every head turned. But it wasn't the groom returning. It was something far more dangerous. Evelyn Carter stood frozen at the altar in her white dress, mascara streaking her cheeks, her 4-year-old daughter clutching her leg. The man who'd promised forever had vanished an hour ago. The whispers had already started. The humiliation was complete. Then he walked in, tall, dark suit, eyes like winter steel. He moved through the pews like he owned them, like he owned everything. "Your groom stole from me," he said quietly. "Now you're going to pay his debt." If you want to see how far this story goes, drop a comment with your city below, hit that like button, and stay until the very end. The morning had started with hope. Evelyn Carter had woken at dawn in the small bedroom she shared with Sophie, her hands trembling as she touched the wedding dress hanging on the closet door. Ivory silk. Simple, elegant, secondhand but beautiful. She'd saved for 8 months to afford it. "Mama, you look like a princess," Sophie had whispered, eyes wide as Evelyn slipped into the gown hours later. "Just for today, sweetheart," Evelyn knelt, cupping her daughter's face. "Just for today, we get our fairy tale." Sophie's father had left before she was born. Evelyn had raised her alone, working double shifts as a bookkeeper, stretching every dollar, building a life from nothing. When Marcus came into her world 6 months ago, charming and attentive and seemingly stable, she'd let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they deserved something good. He'd proposed on a Tuesday. Simple ring, simple words. "Let me take care of you both." She'd said yes. Now, standing at the altar of St. Catherine's Cathedral with 24 guests staring and no groom in sight, Evelyn understood the truth with brutal clarity. She'd been a fool. "He's probably stuck in traffic," her friend Jessica whispered from the front pew, but her eyes said otherwise. The officiant checked his watch for the 3rd time. "Perhaps we should—" "Wait!" Evelyn's voice cracked. "Just wait!" Sophie tugged her dress. "Where's Marcus, Mama?" "He's coming, baby. He's just late." But he wasn't coming. Deep in her gut, beneath the shame and confusion, Evelyn knew. An hour passed. Then another. The pianist had stopped playing. Guests shifted uncomfortably, some already standing to leave. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She grabbed it with shaking hands. "Marcus, I'm sorry. I can't do this. Don't try to find me." That was it. No explanation. No apology worth the name. Just 11 words that shattered everything. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the marble floor. "Evelyn?" Jessica moved toward her. "He's not coming." The words felt like glass in her throat. He's gone." The whispers erupted immediately. Pity, shock, barely concealed gossip. Evelyn felt every eye on her, every judgment, every whispered speculation about what she'd done wrong. She bent down, scooped up Sophie, pressed her face into her daughter's hair to hide the tears. "We're going home, sweetheart." "But the wedding? There's no wedding." She turned toward the aisle, toward escape, toward the door in the parking lot in the tiny apartment where she could fall apart in private. The cathedral doors opened. Not from the inside, from the outside. And the man who entered changed everything. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders filling out an immaculate black suit that probably cost more than Evelyn's car. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone, sharp jaw, high cheekbones, and eyes the color of slate in winter. Cold. Assessing. Dangerous. He moved like a predator, smooth, unhurried, absolutely certain of his place in the world. 2 men followed him, equally well-dressed, equally intimidating. They flanked the door like sentries. The cathedral fell silent. The stranger's gaze swept the room, passed over the confused guests, the abandoned altar, the wilting flowers, and landed on Evelyn. She froze. Something primal in his stare pinned her in place. This wasn't a man who asked permission. This was a man who took. He walked down the aisle. Each footfall echoed in the cavernous space. Guests shrank back as he passed. He stopped 3 feet from Evelyn. Up close, he was even more imposing. The air around him seemed to thicken with authority, with power, with barely leashed violence. "Evelyn Carter?" His voice was low, accented, Russian, maybe Eastern European, and utterly devoid of warmth. She instinctively tightened her grip on Sophie. "Who are you?" Dominic Volkov. He said it like she should know the name, like it should mean something. It didn't. I don't. Your fiancé stole from me. He spoke calmly, almost conversationally, but there was steel beneath every word. $3.2 million to be precise. He's been running a very clever embezzlement scheme for the past 18 months. I discovered it 2 days ago. Evelyn's stomach dropped. That's impossible. Marcus works in IT support. He doesn't have access to that kind of... He worked in my IT department. Dominic's eyes never left hers. He had access to plenty. And he used it well. Until he got greedy. I don't know anything about this. I believe you. He glanced at Sophie, who was staring at him with wide, curious eyes, then back at Evelyn. But belief doesn't change the situation. Your fiancé is gone. The money is gone. And someone needs to answer for it. Ice flooded Evelyn's veins. You can't seriously think I'm responsible for... No. He cut her off. But you're the only leverage I have left. Jessica stepped forward. You can't just come in here and threaten her. We'll call the police. Dominic didn't even look at her. The police won't help you. Marcus Carter made sure of that when he disappeared with evidence of fraud tied to your name, Ms. Carter. Evelyn's breath caught. What? He was thorough. Bank accounts opened in your name, digital signatures, transfer authorizations. If the authorities investigate, they'll find a trail leading directly to you. Dominic's expression didn't change. He set you up to take the fall. The room tilted. Evelyn's knees threatened to buckle. Marcus hadn't just left her, he'd destroyed her. So what do you want? Her voice barely worked. I don't have $3 million. I don't have $3,000. I know. Then what? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. His gaze moved over her face, the tear-stained makeup, the desperation, the terror, and something shifted in his expression, not quite softening, but recalculating. How old is she? He nodded toward Sophie. Evelyn's arms tightened reflexively. That's none of your business. 4? 5? She's 4. And her father? Not in the picture. Dominic nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed something. You're alone. No family. No significant savings. You work as a bookkeeper for a small accounting firm. You live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Riverside. You drive a 2009 Honda Civic with a cracked windshield. Horror crawled up Evelyn's spine. You investigated me. Of course. He said it like it was obvious. I investigate everyone connected to my interests. I'm not connected to anything. I didn't even know Marcus worked for you. I didn't know about any money. I'm just... Her voice broke. I'm just a woman who got left at the altar. That's all. For the first time, something almost like sympathy flickered in Dominic's eyes. Almost. Unfortunately, he said quietly, that's not all you are anymore. The officiant cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Volkov, perhaps this conversation should happen elsewhere. This is a house of worship, and it's also the venue for a wedding. Dominic's attention shifted to the altar, the flowers, the assembled guests. Everything is already prepared. Evelyn's pulse hammered. What are you talking about? Dominic turned back to her. I'm talking about a solution. There is no solution. You want money I don't have. I want compensation for my loss. Money is one form, but there are others. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Others? Evelyn whispered. Dominic stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive, subtle, masculine, close enough to see the absolute certainty in his eyes. Marry me, he said. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't. Evelyn stared at him, wondering if she'd misheard, if the stress had finally fractured her sanity. What? Marry me. Right here. Right now. His voice remained calm, reasonable, like he was proposing a business merger instead of something insane. The officiant is present. The witnesses are here. The venue is paid for. We simply proceed. You're out of your mind. Am I? He tilted his head slightly. Your fiancé destroyed your reputation and your future. If the authorities investigate his crimes, you'll be arrested, prosecuted. Your daughter will end up in foster care while you fight charges you can't afford to defend. Each word landed like a physical blow. But, Dominic continued, If you're my wife, everything changes. I have resources, lawyers, influence. I can make the investigation disappear. I can ensure you're never connected to Marcus's crimes. You and your daughter will be protected. Protected? Evelyn's laugh came out bitter and broken. You mean owned. I mean safe. Why would you do this? Why would you want to marry a complete stranger? Because you have something I need. I don't have anything. You have legitimacy. Dominic's eyes held hers. I operate in a world where perception matters, where family matters. A wife, a respectable, innocent wife with a child, provides certain advantages, social capital, access to circles that would otherwise remain closed. So I'm a business asset. Yes. At least he was honest. Evelyn's mind raced, trying to find an escape route, an alternative, anything that didn't involve chaining herself to this dangerous stranger. And if I refuse? Dominic's expression didn't change. Then I'll pursue every legal avenue to recover my losses, starting with you. I'll use the evidence Marcus planted. I'll ensure the investigation moves forward, and I'll watch as the system swallows you whole. You'd send an innocent woman to prison? I'd pursue justice for a crime committed against me. What happens to you in that pursuit is unfortunate, but not my primary concern. He paused. However, I'd prefer not to. You're a victim here, just as I am. But if you force my hand, I will do what's necessary. Tears burned Evelyn's eyes. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Sophie squirmed in her arms. Mama, you're squeezing too tight. Sorry, baby. Evelyn loosened her grip, pressed a kiss to Sophie's temple, tried to think through the panic clawing at her chest. I need time, she said. I need to think about— No. Dominic's voice was firm. The offer expires when I leave this cathedral. You decide now. That's not fair. No, it's not. He acknowledged it without apology. But it's the situation we're in. Jessica grabbed Evelyn's arm. You can't seriously be considering this. He's threatening you. This is coercion. It's a choice, Dominic corrected. A difficult one, but a choice nonetheless. A choice between marriage and prison isn't a real choice. It's more choice than she'll have when the police arrive with a warrant. He checked his watch, which, I estimate, will be within the next 48 hours once I provide them with the evidence Marcus left behind. Evelyn's breathing turned shallow. You're a monster. I'm a businessman who's been robbed, and I'm offering you a way out. Dominic's gaze held steady. A way to protect your daughter. To give her a life you could never afford on your own. Security. Education. Opportunity. At what cost? Your freedom to leave. Your ability to make certain decisions independently. Your privacy, to some extent. He paused. But not your safety. Not your dignity. And not your daughter's well-being. Those, I guarantee. How can you guarantee anything? Because unlike Marcus Carter, I keep my word. The cathedral was absolutely silent now. Every guest frozen. Every eye locked on this impossible standoff. Evelyn looked down at Sophie, who was playing with the pearl buttons on her dress, oblivious to the fact that their entire future hung in the balance. What kind of life would Sophie have if Evelyn went to prison? Foster care. Instability. Trauma. All because Marcus was a thief and a coward. But what kind of life would she have married to Dominic Volkov? If I agree, Evelyn said slowly, I have conditions. Interest flickered in Dominic's eyes. Name them. Sophie comes first, always, in every decision. Her safety, her happiness, that's non-negotiable. Agreed. I want my own space, my own room. You don't touch me without my explicit consent. Agreed. I want access to education, job training. I won't be some helpless dependent. Reasonable. And if this doesn't work, if I can't do this, I want a way out that doesn't destroy me. Dominic considered this. After 1 year, if you choose to leave, I'll provide a divorce with a settlement that ensures you and Sophie are financially secure. No retaliation, no sabotage. But during that year, you fulfill your role completely. What role exactly? You appear with me at necessary events. You live in my home. You present as my wife to the outside world. His eyes held hers. What happens privately, behind closed doors? We negotiate as we go. But publicly, we're a united front. It was a cage. A gilded, comfortable cage, but a cage nonetheless. But the alternative was worse. Evelyn closed her eyes, took a breath, felt Sophie's small hand patting her cheek. Mama, are you sad? No, baby. Evelyn opened her eyes, looked at Dominic Volkov, and made a choice that terrified her. I'm just thinking. She set Sophie down gently, smoothed her daughter's hair, then straightened to her full height. She was 5'6" in heels. Dominic still towered over her, but she met his eyes without flinching. If I do this, she said, you keep every promise you just made, every single one. And if you don't, if you hurt us, or lie to us, or treat us like property, I'll find a way to make you regret it. I don't care how powerful you are. A ghost of a smile touched Dominic's mouth, the first hint of any emotion beyond cold calculation. Understood. Then, Evelyn's heart hammered so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Then yes, I'll marry you. The cathedral erupted in shocked whispers. Jessica grabbed her arm again. Evelyn, you can't. I can. Evelyn pulled free gently. I have to. This is insane. I know. Dominic turned to the officiant, who looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. We're ready to proceed. This is highly irregular. I don't even know if it's legal without proper... It's legal. Dominic pulled a folded document from his jacket. Marriage license, already filed with the county clerk. We simply need your signature after the ceremony. Evelyn's blood ran cold. You came here planning this. I came here prepared for multiple scenarios. This was the preferred one. He handed the license to the officiant. Shall we? The officiant looked at Evelyn. Miss Carter, are you certain? She's certain. Dominic's voice left no room for argument. I want to hear it from her. Evelyn appreciated that. Appreciated that someone, at least, was trying to give her an out. But there was no out. Not really. I'm certain, she said quietly. The officiant sighed, defeated. He moved to the altar, opened his book with trembling hands. Dominic offered his arm. Evelyn stared at it for a long moment, then took it. His muscles were solid beneath the expensive fabric, unyielding. They walked to the altar together. Sophie followed, clutching Evelyn's dress, sensing that something important was happening even if she didn't understand what. Jessica stayed in the pew, tears streaming down her face. The other guests sat frozen, witnesses to something they'd never forget. Dominic positioned himself across from Evelyn. He looked calm, completely in control, like this was exactly what he'd expected. Evelyn felt like she was drowning. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, he faltered, started again. We are gathered here today. Skip to the vows, Dominic said. Yes, of course. The officiant flipped pages. Do you, Dominic Volkov, take Evelyn Carter to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward? I do. No hesitation, no doubt. And do you, Evelyn Carter, take Dominic Volkov to be your lawfully wedded husband? Evelyn's throat closed. This was it. The moment where she either saved herself and Sophie or destroyed them both. I do, she whispered. The rings? Dominic reached into his pocket, pulled out 2 platinum bands. Simple, elegant, expensive. He'd planned everything. He took Evelyn's left hand. His fingers were warm, strong, surprisingly gentle as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. She took the other ring with shaking hands, slid it onto his finger. It felt surreal, like watching someone else's life from a distance. By the power vested in me, the officiant said weakly, I now pronounce you husband and wife. He didn't say the traditional line. Dominic didn't wait for it. He leaned down, gave Evelyn the briefest, most formal kiss, barely a brush of lips, and stepped back. It's done, he said quietly. Evelyn looked down at the ring on her finger. 3 hours ago, she'd expected to marry Marcus, to start a modest, normal life. Now she was married to a man she didn't know, a man who'd coerced her into this, A man who operated in shadows and spoke of leverage like it was currency. Sophie tugged her dress. Mama, are we going home now? Dominic knelt down, bringing himself to Sophie's eye level. Evelyn tensed, ready to intervene, but he kept his distance, respectful. What's your name? He asked. Sophie ducked behind Evelyn's leg shyly. Sophie. Hello, Sophie, I'm Dominic. Are you Mama's friend? Something like that. Do you have a big house? A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Yes. With a yard? A very big yard. Can I have a dog? Evelyn started to intervene. Sophie, that's not... Yes, Dominic said. Sophie's eyes went wide. Really? Really? He stood, addressed Evelyn. We should go. My car is waiting. I need to get our things from the apartment. Sophie's clothes, her toys. I'll send someone for them. Everything will be brought to the estate. I want to get them myself. No. His tone was firm but not harsh. The apartment isn't safe. Marcus knew where you lived. He might have shared that information. Until I'm certain you're not in danger, you stay with me. It hadn't even occurred to Evelyn that Marcus might have put them at risk beyond the legal implications. What kind of danger? The kind that comes when you steal millions from dangerous people. Dominic's eyes were serious. I'm not the only one he took from. There are others who might see you as leverage, just as I did. The difference is, I have no interest in harming you. They might not be so particular. Fear spiked through her. You're saying we're in danger from other people he stole from? I'm saying you're safer with me than anywhere else. Evelyn wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself and Sophie. But she looked at her daughter, so small and innocent, and knew the truth. She couldn't protect them. Not from this. Okay, she said. We'll go with you. Dominic nodded, started toward the exit. Evelyn bent down, scooped up Sophie. We're going on an adventure, sweetheart. With the man who has a yard? Yes. Is he nice? Evelyn glanced at Dominic's broad back, the way his men fell into formation around him, the absolute authority in every movement. I don't know yet, she admitted. They walked down the aisle together, past the shocked guests, past Jessica, who was openly crying, past the flowers and the abandoned Unity candle and all the trappings of the wedding that never happened. Outside, a black Mercedes waited at the curb. Sleek, expensive, armored, probably. One of Dominic's men opened the back door. Evelyn hesitated. Once she got in that car, there was no going back. Ms. Carter. Dominic waited beside the open door. He didn't rush her, didn't force her, just waited. Evelyn took a breath, held Sophie tight, and climbed inside. The leather seats were soft. The interior smelled like money. Sophie immediately started exploring the buttons and screens. Dominic slid in beside her. The door closed with a heavy, final thunk. The car pulled away from the cathedral. Evelyn watched through the tinted window as St. Catherine's disappeared behind them, as her old life faded into the distance. Where are we going? She asked. Home, Dominic said, but it wasn't her home. It was his. And now, somehow, impossibly, she was his wife. The thought made her want to scream, or cry, or both. Instead, she held Sophie and watched the city pass by in silence. The drive took 40 minutes. They left the cramped streets of Riverside behind, wound through increasingly wealthy neighborhoods, and finally turned onto a private road lined with mature oak trees. The gates were iron, tall, intimidating. They opened automatically as the Mercedes approached. The estate beyond was stunning, not a house, an actual estate. Stone and glass and architectural elegance spread across what had to be at least 10 acres, gardens, fountains, a view of distant hills. Sophie pressed her face to the window. Whoa. Indeed, Dominic said quietly. The car stopped at the front entrance. More men appeared. Staff, Evelyn realized. Security, housekeepers. Dominic exited first, offered his hand to help her out. Evelyn ignored it, climbed out on her own with Sophie on her hip. He didn't react, just gestured toward the entrance. This way. Inside was even more impressive. Marble floors, high ceilings, art that probably cost more than Evelyn would make in a lifetime. A woman approached, late 50s, elegant, professional. Mr. Volkov, welcome home. Catherine, Dominic nodded to her. This is my wife, Evelyn, and her daughter, Sophie. They'll be living here now. Please prepare the East Wing guest suite for them. Of course. Catherine's expression didn't betray any surprise at the sudden appearance of a wife. Will you be needing anything else? Dinner in an hour, something child-friendly. Immediately, sir. Catherine turned to Evelyn with a kind smile. Mrs. Volkov, if you'll follow me, I'll show you to your rooms. Mrs. Volkov. The name sounded foreign, wrong, but it was hers now. Evelyn followed Catherine up a sweeping staircase, down a hallway lined with artwork, to a set of double doors. Catherine opened them to reveal a suite that was bigger than Evelyn's entire apartment. King bed, sitting area, private bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people, and a connecting door to a second bedroom, clearly meant for Sophie, with a bed shaped like a castle and toys already arranged on shelves. How? Evelyn stared. How is this already set up? Catherine's smile was diplomatic. Mr. Volkov is very thorough in his preparations. He'd known she'd say yes, or he'd made sure she had no other choice. Your belongings will arrive within the hour, Catherine continued. If you need anything in the meantime, simply press the button by the bed and someone will assist you. Dinner will be served in the informal dining room at 7. Thank you. Catherine left, closing the doors quietly behind her. Evelyn set Sophie down. Her daughter immediately ran to explore the castle bed, squealing with delight. Evelyn sank onto the edge of the massive bed, still in her wedding dress, and tried to process what had just happened. This morning, she'd been a single mother struggling to make ends meet. Tonight, she was married to one of the most dangerous men she'd ever met, and she had no idea what came next. A soft knock on the connecting door made her look up. Dominic stood in the doorway. He'd removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. Somehow, he looked even more formidable in casual dress. You should rest, he said. It's been a difficult day. That's an understatement. He almost smiled. Almost. Indeed. Why did you really do this? Evelyn asked. The truth, not the business asset explanation. Dominic was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Because I could see you were trapped, and I needed something you could provide. It was mutually beneficial. Mutual implies equal benefit. This isn't equal. No, he agreed. It's not, but it's better than the alternative. He wasn't wrong. The rules, Evelyn said. I want them clear. What do you expect from me? Discretion. Loyalty, at least in public. Your presence at events when I need you there. He leaned against the door frame. And time. Time for what? To see if this can work. To see if we can build something functional, if not conventional. His eyes held hers. I don't expect love, Evelyn. I don't even expect friendship. But I do expect honesty. Can you give me that? Can you? Yes. She wanted to believe him, desperately wanted to believe that underneath the coercion and the threats, there was something decent, but she'd believed Marcus too. I'll try, she said. That's all I can promise. That's enough. Sophie ran over, grabbed his hand without fear. Will you show me the yard? Mama said you have a really big yard. Mais ça. Dominic looked startled by the contact, like he wasn't used to being touched so casually. Sophie, Evelyn warned, Mr. Volkov is busy. It's fine. He let Sophie tug him toward the hallway. I can spare a few minutes. Evelyn followed them downstairs through the house to a back terrace that overlooked gardens and a lawn that seemed to stretch forever. Sophie ran onto the grass, spinning with her arms out, laughing. She's resilient, Dominic observed. She has to be. You've done well with her, raising her alone. The compliment caught Evelyn off guard. Thank you. They stood in silence, watching Sophie explore. I meant what I said, Dominic said quietly, about keeping my promises. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I'll prove it day by day. Why does it matter if I trust you? Because this only works if you believe you're safe here. If Sophie believes it, he glanced at her. Fear is a poor foundation for anything sustainable. Then maybe you shouldn't have started with threats. I started with honesty. The threats were simply the reality of your situation. He paused. I didn't create that situation. Marcus did. I'm just the one offering you a way through it. He was right. She hated that he was right. I'm going to check on Sophie, Evelyn said, moving toward her daughter. Evelyn. She stopped, looked back. Welcome home, Dominic said. The words should have been mocking, cruel, but they weren't. They were almost sincere. Evelyn didn't know what to do with that, so she simply nodded and walked away, leaving Dominic standing on the terrace alone. As the sun set over the estate, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Evelyn Carter, now Evelyn Volkov, held her daughter and wondered what kind of future she'd just chosen, and whether she'd survive it. Dinner was served in what Catherine called the informal dining room, though it was larger and more elegant than any restaurant Evelyn had ever been to. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over a mahogany table that could seat 12. Place settings gleamed with china that probably cost more than Evelyn's monthly rent. Sophie sat in a chair padded with cushions to bring her to table height, eyes wide as Catherine brought out the first course. Chicken fingers? Sophie looked up at Dominic, who sat at the head of the table. You have chicken fingers? I was informed they're a favorite among 4-year-olds, he replied, his tone surprisingly gentle. Evelyn sat across from Sophie, still in her wedding dress because she had nothing else to wear. The surreal nature of it all pressed down on her, sitting in a mansion, married to a stranger, pretending this was somehow normal. You didn't have to do that, Evelyn said quietly. Order special food for her. She's a child. Children have preferences. Dominic cut into his own meal with precise movements. It's not difficult to accommodate. Sophie kicked her legs happily, munching on a chicken finger. This is the best wedding ever. Evelyn's throat tightened. Sophie didn't understand. How could she? To her, this was an adventure. A big house, good food, the promise of a dog. She didn't know her mother had just sold their future to a man who dealt in threats and leverage. Evelyn, Dominic's voice pulled her back. You should eat. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten all day. How would you know? Because I know everything about you. He said it matter-of-factly, without arrogance. You skipped breakfast this morning because you were nervous. You were supposed to have lunch at the reception that never happened. You need to eat. Note the fact that he was right only made it worse. Evelyn picked up her fork, forced herself to take a bite. The food was excellent, perfectly seasoned, restaurant quality, but it tasted like ash in her mouth. They ate in tense silence, broken only by Sophie's cheerful commentary about the chandelier, the paintings, the size of her new bedroom. When Catherine cleared the plates, Dominic stood. I have work to attend to. Catherine will help you get settled. Wait, Evelyn stood too. We need to talk about expectations, about what happens next. Tomorrow. He was already moving toward the door. You're exhausted. We'll discuss everything tomorrow. You can't just... He turned back, and something in his expression stopped her words. Not anger. Something else. Something almost like concern. One day at a time, Evelyn, he said quietly. That's all I'm asking. One day at a time. Then he was gone, disappearing into the depths of his enormous house, leaving her alone with Sophie and a stranger's kindness. Catherine approached with a warm smile. I've laid out some clothing options in your room, Mrs. Volkov. Temporary, until we can arrange proper shopping. And Sophie's belongings from your apartment have arrived. Evelyn blinked. Already? Mr. Volkov's team is very efficient. That was one word for it. Upstairs, Evelyn found her small apartment's worth of possessions had been unpacked and arranged throughout the suite. Sophie's toys lined the shelves in her new bedroom. Their clothes hung in a closet 3 times the size of the one they'd shared. On the bed lay a simple nightgown and robe, clearly expensive and exactly Evelyn's size. How did he know my size? She asked aloud. Catherine, who was helping Sophie into pajamas, smiled diplomatically. Mr. Volkov is very thorough. There was that word again. Thorough. It should have been comforting. Instead, it was terrifying. After Sophie was tucked into her castle bed, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, Evelyn stood in the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was smudged, her hair falling from its carefully pinned style. She still wore the wedding dress that was supposed to symbolize a fresh start. Instead, it marked the end of everything she'd known. She undressed slowly, hung the gown in the closet where it looked out of place among her Target clearance finds. The nightgown Catherine had provided felt like silk against her skin. Evelyn climbed into the massive bed, surrounded by luxury she'd never imagined, and finally let herself cry. She cried for the future she'd lost, for the humiliation at the altar, for the choices stolen from her, for the fear that lived in her chest like a stone. And she cried because underneath it all, a small, traitorous part of her was relieved. Relieved that Sophie had food and safety. Relieved that the constant worry about rent and bills had been replaced by something else. Even if that something else was captivity, dressed in expensive sheets. She cried until there were no tears left, until exhaustion dragged her down into restless sleep. When she woke, sunlight streamed through windows she'd forgotten to cover. The clock on the nightstand read 9:30. Panic spiked through her. Sophie. But Sophie's bedroom door was open, and she could hear her daughter's laughter drifting from somewhere downstairs. Evelyn threw on the robe and rushed down the stairs, following the sound to a sunlit breakfast room where Sophie sat at a small table, coloring with an array of art supplies that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. A young woman in casual clothes sat beside her, encouraging her drawing. "Mama!" Sophie jumped up. "This is Anna. She's teaching me to draw horses." The woman, Anna, stood and offered a hand. "Good morning, Mrs. Volkov. I'm Sophie's nanny." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Her what?" "Mr. Volkov hired me last night. I have a degree in early childhood education and 5 years of experience. My references are available if you'd like to review them." "I don't need a nanny. I'm her mother." Anna's smile remained kind, but professional. "Of course. I'm simply here to help when you need it. Mr. Volkov thought you might appreciate the support." What he thought was that he could make decisions about Sophie without consulting Evelyn. "Where is he?" "In his office. Would you like me to—" But Evelyn was already moving, driven by fury that burned through her exhaustion. She stormed through the house, throwing open doors until she found him. Dominic sat behind a massive desk in a wood-paneled office, reviewing documents with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. He looked up as she burst in. "You hired a nanny without asking me?" Evelyn's voice shook with anger. "You don't get to make decisions about my daughter." Dominic set down his pen. "Anna is fully vetted, background checked, highly qualified. I don't care if she's Mary Poppins. You should have asked me first. You were asleep. Sophie was awake and needed supervision. I would have woken up. You were exhausted." He stood, moved around the desk. "You needed rest. Sophie needed attention. Anna provided that. Where's the problem?" "The problem is you acting like you own us." "I don't own you, but this is my house, and I'm responsible for everyone in it. That includes ensuring a 4-year-old isn't wandering around unsupervised while her mother recovers from a traumatic day." He made it sound reasonable, logical, but it wasn't about logic. "You can't just make decisions without me," Evelyn said, forcing her voice to steady. "That wasn't part of our agreement. Our agreement was that Sophie comes first. I'm putting her first. By hiring a stranger to watch her? By hiring a professional to ensure she's cared for while you adjust to your new circumstances." Dominic's expression remained calm. "If you don't like Anna, we'll find someone else. But you will have help, Evelyn. You can't do this alone anymore." "I've been doing it alone for 4 years. And you've done admirably, but you don't have to anymore." He paused. "That's not a weakness. It's a resource. Use it." Evelyn wanted to argue, wanted to rage against this man who thought he could reorganize her entire life overnight. But Sophie's laughter drifted from the breakfast room, bright and carefree, and Evelyn realized something that made her chest ache. Her daughter sounded happy. When was the last time Sophie had laughed like that? Without Evelyn rushing her through breakfast to get to daycare, without the stress that bled into every moment of their old life. "I want final say," Evelyn said quietly, "on anything involving Sophie. You can make suggestions, but I decide." Dominic nodded. "Acceptable. And I want to meet with Anna, properly. Review her background myself. Of course. And if I don't like her, then she's gone." He said it simply. "I told you, Evelyn, Sophie comes first. If you're not comfortable with the arrangements, we change them." Some of the fight drained out of her. "Why are you being reasonable about this?" "Because you're right. I should have consulted you first." He moved to a sideboard, poured coffee from a carafe. "I'm not accustomed to considering others in my decisions. It's a habit I'll need to break." He handed her the cup. She took it automatically, surprised by the gesture. "How do you take it?" he asked. "What?" "Your coffee. I have cream, sugar. Black is fine." He smiled slightly. "Practical." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Evelyn sipped the coffee. It was perfect, rich and strong, and tried to figure out what she was supposed to do now. "I have meetings today," Dominic said, "but this evening we should talk. Set clear boundaries, establish routines." "Okay. In the meantime, Catherine can take you shopping for clothes. You'll need a new wardrobe." Evelyn looked down at the borrowed robe. "I have clothes." "You have clothes for your old life. You need clothes for this one." "What's wrong with my old clothes?" "Nothing, but you'll be attending events with me. Charity galas, business dinners. You'll need appropriate attire." The reality of what he was asking settled over her. "You want me to play dress-up, to be your accessory. I want you to be comfortable in situations that will be part of your life now." His tone remained even. "I'm not trying to erase who you are, Evelyn. I'm trying to give you tools to navigate who you need to become." "And who's that?" "My wife." He said it without hesitation. "In public, at least. What you are in private is still being negotiated." There was something almost honest in that, almost respectful. Evelyn finished her coffee, set the cup down. "Fine. I'll go shopping with Catherine, but I choose what I buy." "Of course." "And I'm not wearing anything ridiculous. No tiny dresses or sky-high heels." "I wouldn't dream of it." The corner of his mouth twitched. "You have good instincts, Evelyn. Trust them." She didn't know what to say to that, so she simply turned and left, feeling his eyes on her back as she walked away. The shopping trip was surreal. Catherine drove her to boutiques Evelyn had only seen from the outside, places where a single dress cost more than her previous monthly grocery budget. Personal shoppers appeared with armfuls of options. Everything was tailored, elegant, understated. "Mr. Volkov has excellent taste," one of the shoppers commented, holding up a slate blue dress. "Does he pick out women's clothes often?" Evelyn asked before she could stop herself. The woman's smile faltered. "I couldn't say, ma'am." Catherine intervened smoothly. "Mr. Volkov appreciates quality in all things. He's simply ensuring you have what you need." By the end of the afternoon, Evelyn had acquired more clothing than she'd owned in her entire life. Dresses, slacks, blouses, shoes, even jewelry. All of it beautiful. All of it expensive. All of it feeling like a costume for a role she didn't want to play. When they returned to the estate, Sophie ran to greet her, still chattering about horses and the garden, and how Anna had shown her where butterflies lived. "Can we go see the butterflies tomorrow, Mama? Please?" Evelyn knelt, hugged her daughter tight. "Of course, baby." "And Anna says maybe we can get a puppy soon, a real one." Evelyn looked over Sophie's head to where Anna stood in the doorway, apologetic. "She asked," Anna explained. "I said we'd have to see what her mother thought." "A dog is a big responsibility," Evelyn said carefully. "I'll feed it and walk it and everything." Sophie bounced with excitement. "Please, Mama, you said maybe someday, and Dominic said we could—" "Dominic said?" Sophie nodded enthusiastically. "At breakfast. He said when we're all settled, we can go pick one out together." Evelyn's jaw tightened. Another decision made without her. But Sophie's face was so hopeful, so bright with joy, that Evelyn couldn't bring herself to crush it. "We'll see," she said. "But first, you need to take a bath and get ready for dinner." "Okay." Sophie ran toward the stairs, Anna following. Evelyn stood slowly, exhaustion settling into her bones. One day in this life, and already she was losing control of everything. "Mrs. Volkov?" Catherine approached. "Dinner will be ready in an hour. Mr. Volkov asked if you'd join him in the library afterward for that discussion." "Fine. And I took the liberty of having the dress from yesterday cleaned and preserved in case you wanted to keep it." Evelyn thought of the wedding dress, the symbol of a marriage that never happened and another that shouldn't have. "Donate it," she said. "Someone else can have their fairy tale." Catherine's expression softened with understanding. "Of course." That evening, Evelyn dressed in one of her new outfits, simple black slacks and a cream silk blouse, and tried not to think about how easily she was slipping into this new skin. Dinner was quieter than the night before. Sophie was tired from her day of exploration and fell asleep at the table, forcing Evelyn to carry her upstairs early. When she returned, Dominic was waiting in the library, a room lined floor to ceiling with books. He sat in a leather chair by the fireplace, reading. He looked up as she entered. "Sophie asleep?" "Yes. It was a big day for her. For both of you." He closed his book, set it aside. "Please, sit." Evelyn chose the chair across from him, maintaining distance. "You wanted to talk about boundaries and expectations." "Yes." He leaned back, studying her with those unsettling gray eyes. "You were right this morning. I overstepped. I'm used to unilateral decision-making. It's how I operate in business. But this isn't business." "What is it then?" "A partnership of sorts." He paused. "One that will only work if we establish clear rules." "I'm listening." "First, Sophie, all decisions regarding her welfare, education, and care are made jointly. If I have suggestions, I present them to you first. You have final say." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Okay." "Second, your autonomy. You're free to move about the estate as you wish. You can go into town, see friends, maintain your own life. But," he held up a hand as she started to speak, "you'll have security with you, non-negotiable. Marcus made enemies beyond me. Until I'm certain you're safe, you're protected." "Protected or monitored?" "Both. I won't pretend otherwise." His honesty was almost jarring. "But the monitoring is for safety, not control. You're not a prisoner, Evelyn. You're my wife, and I protect what's mine." The possessiveness in those words sent a shiver down her spine, not entirely from fear. "Third," he continued, "public appearances. I'll need you at certain events, business dinners, charity functions. I'll give you as much notice as possible, and I'll never force you to attend something that makes you genuinely uncomfortable. But I do need you to fulfill that role when it's necessary." "Playing the devoted wife. Presenting as a united front," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Because privately we can be whatever we negotiate." He leaned forward slightly. "I meant what I said yesterday. I don't expect intimacy. I don't expect affection. I expect professionalism in public and honesty in private." Evelyn searched his face for deception, for hidden agendas. But he met her gaze steadily. "What about you?" she asked. "What are your boundaries?" "Don't betray me. Don't undermine me in public. Don't share the details of our arrangement with anyone outside this house." He paused. "And don't ask me about my business operations. That part of my life remains separate." "Because it's illegal?" "Because it's dangerous. The less you know, the safer you are." That answered her question. "So you are a criminal?" "I'm a businessman who operates in gray areas." He didn't flinch from the implication. "But I've never harmed an innocent person, and I never will. That includes you and Sophie." "How am I supposed to trust that?" "By watching what I do, not what I say." He stood, moved to a cabinet, poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. He offered her one. "I don't expect trust immediately. I expect to earn it day by day." Evelyn took the glass. "Whiskey, probably. Expensive, like everything else in this house." "1 year," she said. "You said after 1 year, if this doesn't work, I can leave with a settlement." "Yes." "What kind of settlement?" "Enough to ensure you and Sophie are comfortable for the foreseeable future. A house, trust fund for her education, monthly income until you're established in a career." It was more than generous, suspiciously so. "Why would you do that? If I leave, you lose your social capital." "Because keeping you here against your will defeats the purpose." He sipped his drink. "I need a wife who chooses to be here, even if that choice is informed by practical considerations rather than affection." "You really don't care if I love you?" "Love is a fantasy for people who can afford it." His voice was matter-of-fact. "I can't. Neither can you, not anymore. What we build here will be based on something more reliable than emotion." "What's that?" "Mutual benefit, respect, trust, eventually." He met her eyes. "Those things last, Evelyn. Love fades. Passion burns out. But a solid partnership, that endures." She wanted to argue, wanted to believe in something more than his cold pragmatism. But she'd believed in love once, And Marcus had left her at the altar with debts and destruction in his wake. Maybe Dominic was right. Maybe partnership was better than promises. Okay, she said quietly. We try this. One day at a time. One day at a time, he echoed. They drank in silence, the fire crackling between them, two strangers bound by vows that meant nothing and everything. Can I ask you something? Evelyn said after a while. Yes. Why did you really choose marriage? You could have found other ways to handle Marcus's theft, other ways to get your money back or exact revenge. Why this? Dominic was quiet for a long moment, swirling the whiskey in his glass. Because I'm tired, he finally said. Of what? Of the isolation, of the constant vigilance, of operating in shadows without anything real to ground me. He looked at her. I've built an empire, Evelyn. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I have power, influence, everything I thought I wanted. And it's empty. The admission seemed to cost him something. I come home to this house every night, and it's just walls, no life, no purpose beyond acquisition and control. So you bought a wife to fill the void? I offered a solution to a woman who needed one. And yes, I hoped it might fill some of the void. He set his glass down. Sophie laughed at dinner last night. A child's laughter in this house. I can't remember the last time I heard that sound. Maybe never. Evelyn's chest tightened. You can't use my daughter to fix whatever's broken in you. I'm not. But I can give her a better life than she had before. And maybe, in doing so, create something better for all of us. He stood. It's late. You should rest. Evelyn stood too, but didn't move toward the door. Dominic. He turned back. Thank you for being honest. I don't like this situation, but I appreciate that you're not pretending it's something it isn't. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. Sleep well, Evelyn. She left him there in the library, surrounded by books and firelight, and whatever demons drove a man to trade money for the illusion of family. Upstairs, she checked on Sophie, who slept peacefully in her castle bed, and then climbed into her own bed, exhausted. But sleep didn't come easily. She lay in the darkness, thinking about Dominic's words, about partnership and trust and the strange, terrifying path she'd chosen. One day at a time. She could do that. She had to. The next morning brought another surprise. Evelyn woke to find an envelope on her nightstand. Inside was a bank card with her name on it and a simple note in elegant handwriting. For your personal expenses. No limit, no questions. D. She stared at the card, at the freedom and the cage it represented. Downstairs, she found Dominic in the breakfast room, reading a newspaper. The card, she said without preamble. He looked up. Is there a problem? I don't need unlimited money. Considerate payment for services rendered. You're my wife. That comes with certain benefits. He returned to his paper. Use it or don't, but it's yours. Sophie bounded in, already dressed and ready for the day. Anna followed, carrying a small backpack. We're going to the butterfly garden, Sophie announced. Evelyn looked at Anna, who nodded. If that's all right with you, Mrs. Volkov, it's a beautiful day for it. Of course. Evelyn knelt, kissed Sophie's forehead. Have fun, baby. After they left, silence filled the room. She's adjusting well, Dominic observed. Children are resilient. Like their mothers. Evelyn looked at him sharply, but he was focused on his newspaper, face unreadable. I need something to do, she said abruptly. I can't just sit around this house all day. What would you like to do? I don't know, work maybe, something useful. You have a degree in accounting, correct? Yes. I'll arrange for you to meet with my CFO. We can always use skilled financial analysts. He flipped a page. Unless you'd prefer something outside my organization. Would that be allowed? I told you, you're not a prisoner. If you want to work elsewhere, work elsewhere. The offer was tempting. But working for his company would at least give her insight into his world. Know your enemy, as they said. Not that Dominic was exactly an enemy anymore. She didn't know what he was. I'll meet with your CFO, she decided. I'll set it up for tomorrow. They fell into an odd rhythm over the following days. Dominic was gone most days, managing his mysterious business empire. Evelyn met with his CFO, a sharp woman named Maria, who treated her with respect rather than suspicion, and started reviewing financial reports. Sophie thrived under Anna's care, spending her days exploring the estate, playing in the garden, learning things that would have been impossible in their old life. And slowly, gradually, Evelyn began to understand what Dominic had meant about partnership. He kept his promises, every single one. He consulted her about decisions involving Sophie. He gave her space and autonomy. He never pushed for intimacy or affection. He treated her with a careful respect that felt both genuine and calculated. In public, the few times they ventured out together, he was attentive without being possessive. He introduced her as his wife with something that almost resembled pride. He held doors, guided her with a hand at the small of her back, played the role perfectly. And in private, they were cordial, polite, almost friendly. It should have been enough. But late at night, alone in her massive bed, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that she was waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for Dominic to show his true colors, waiting for the trap to spring shut. Because men like him didn't do kind things without expecting something in return. Did they? The answer came 3 weeks into their arrangement, on a Saturday evening when Dominic informed her they'd be attending a charity gala the following night. "It's the Westfield Foundation benefit," he said over dinner. "High profile, important contacts. We need to make an appearance." Evelyn's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "We?" "Yes. Together." He looked at her steadily. "This is what I meant about public appearances. It's necessary." "How necessary?" "Very. I've already RSVP'd for both of us." Sophie was already in bed, leaving them alone in the dining room. The space felt too large, too formal, even after weeks of eating here. "You could have asked first," Evelyn said. "Would you have said yes?" "Probably not." "Then I'm asking now." His tone softened slightly. "Will you come with me tomorrow night? Please?" The please surprised her. Dominic didn't strike her as a man who said that word often. "What exactly would I have to do?" "Stand beside me. Smile. Make polite conversation. Let people see that I have a wife and a family now." He set down his wine glass. "I need them to see me as something other than what I am." "And what are you?" "Dangerous, unpredictable, unsuitable for their world." His mouth quirked without humor. "But a married man with a stepchild? That's respectable, domesticated, safe. So I'm your camouflage. You're my legitimacy." He met her eyes. "I won't pretend otherwise, but in exchange you get access to their world too. Connections, opportunities. These people can open doors for you that would otherwise remain closed." Evelyn thought about it. She'd never been to a charity gala, had never owned a dress expensive enough for one, had never imagined she belonged in those circles. But she was Dominic Volkov's wife now. Like it or not, those circles were part of her life. "Fine," she said. "I'll go." "Thank you, but I need a dress. Something appropriate." "Already handled." Catherine scheduled a fitting for tomorrow morning. Of course he had. "You were very confident I'd say yes." "I was hopeful." He stood, collected his dishes. "And if you'd refused, I would have gone alone and dealt with the consequences." "What consequences?" "Questions, speculation, rumors that my marriage is a sham." He paused in the doorway. "Which it is, technically, but no one else needs to know that." After he left, Evelyn sat alone in the dining room, staring at her reflection in the darkened windows. She looked different than she had 3 weeks ago. Her hair was professionally styled now. Her clothes fit perfectly. Even her posture had changed, becoming more confident, more poised. She was becoming someone else. The question was whether that someone else was better or worse than who she'd been before. The fitting the next morning was an experience. The designer, a thin, intense woman named Margot, had brought 3 options, each more stunning than the last. Evelyn chose a deep emerald gown with a modest neckline and elegant lines that made her feel powerful rather than exposed. "Mr. Volkov has excellent taste," Margot murmured, pinning the hem. "He specified exactly what would suit you." "He picked this out?" "He gave very specific instructions, classic, elegant, nothing too revealing or ostentatious." Margot stepped back, assessing. "He knows you well." But he didn't. They'd spent 3 weeks in careful orbit around each other, polite and distant. He knew her measurements and her coffee preference, and that she preferred reading to television. But he didn't know her fears or her dreams or what kept her awake at night. Unless he did, and simply chose not to acknowledge it. That evening, Catherine helped her dress and style her hair into a sophisticated updo. Makeup was applied with a professional's precision. When Evelyn looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. "You look beautiful, Mrs. Volkov," Catherine said warmly. "I look like I'm playing dress-up." "You look like exactly who you are, Mr. Volkov's wife." Downstairs, Dominic waited in the foyer, devastating in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He looked up as she descended the stairs, and something flickered in his eyes. Appreciation. Maybe more. "You look—" He stopped, seemed to reconsider his words. "Perfect. You look perfect." "So do you," Evelyn admitted. They stood there for a moment, two people wearing masks preparing to perform for an audience. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but let's go anyway." The gala was held at the Regency Hotel, a massive ballroom filled with chandeliers and champagne and people who'd never worried about rent in their lives. Evelyn felt their eyes on her the moment she entered on Dominic's arm. Curious, assessing, judging. "They're staring," she whispered. "Of course they are. You're stunning, and no one knew I was married." His hand settled at the small of her back, warm and steadying. Let them stare, let them wonder. He guided her through the crowd with practiced ease, introducing her to business associates and society fixtures whose names she'd only seen in the newspaper. Each time, he presented her with unmistakable pride. "My wife, Evelyn." Not just his wife. His. The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, it felt almost protective. Like he was claiming her in front of these people specifically to shield her from their speculation. "Dominic Volkov, married," a silver-haired man said with poorly concealed surprise. "I never thought I'd see the day." "Life is full of surprises, Senator." Dominic's smile was polite, but didn't reach his eyes. "Evelyn, this is Senator Morrison. Senator, my wife." Morrison took her hand, his grip lingering just slightly too long. "A pleasure. How did you two meet?" "Through mutual circumstances," Dominic said smoothly, before Evelyn could answer. "Sometimes the best things come from unexpected situations." That was one way to describe being coerced into marriage. As the evening wore on, Evelyn began to understand the game being played. These people, politicians, business leaders, old money elite, all wanted something from Dominic: access, favors, investment. And he navigated their requests with the skill of someone who'd spent years mastering the art of saying no while appearing to consider yes. "You're good at this," she murmured during a brief moment alone. "Practice." He accepted champagne from a passing waiter, handed her a glass. "I've been playing this game for a long time. Do you ever get tired of it?" "Every single day." He sipped his drink. "But it's necessary. Power isn't just about money, Evelyn. It's about relationships, perception, making people believe you're someone they want to be associated with. Even when you're not. Especially then." A woman in diamonds approached, her smile sharp. "Dominic, darling, you've been hiding from us." "Mrs. Ashford." Dominic's tone cooled noticeably. "I didn't realize you'd be here." "Oh, I never miss the Westfield benefit. So much opportunity for meaningful conversation." Her eyes shifted to Evelyn, predatory. "And who is this?" "My wife, Evelyn." "Your wife?" The woman's laugh was brittle. "How sudden! I don't recall seeing an announcement." "We prefer privacy," Evelyn said, finding her voice. "Some things are too important to share with strangers." Mrs. Ashford's eyes narrowed. "Of course. How quaint." After she left, Dominic's hand found Evelyn's again. Well handled. "She's awful. She's dangerous. Her husband sits on the banking commission. She trades in gossip and leverage." He steered her toward the terrace doors. "Let's get some air." Outside, the night was cool and quiet, the city lights spreading below them like scattered diamonds. Evelyn breathed deeply, grateful for the escape. "Thank you," Dominic said quietly. "For what?" "For being here, for playing the role convincingly." He leaned against the railing. "I know this isn't what you wanted." "No, But it's not terrible either. She surprised herself by meaning it. Your world is different, complicated. That's a diplomatic way of saying corrupt and morally ambiguous. I was trying to be polite. He smiled, a real smile this time, reaching his eyes. You don't have to be polite with me, Evelyn. Not when we're alone. Then I'll say it. These people are sharks. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every smile is calculated. It's exhausting. Yes. He turned to face her fully. But you held your own. You didn't let them intimidate you. That's rare. I spent years dealing with demanding clients and difficult bosses. This isn't that different. It's very different. These people can destroy you with a word in the right ear. His expression grew serious. But they won't, because you're with me, and they know better. There was that possessiveness again, wrapped around her like armor. Do you enjoy it? She asked. The power? Sometimes. Mostly I find it necessary. He was quiet for a moment. I grew up with nothing, Evelyn. Less than nothing. I built everything I have from dirt and determination and choices I'm not proud of. Power means no one can ever put me back in that position again. It was the most personal thing he'd shared with her, a glimpse behind the mask. What happened to you? She asked softly. To make you this way? That's a conversation for another time. He straightened. We should go back. People will talk if we're gone too long. Let them talk. You say that now, but gossip has consequences in this world. They returned to the ballroom, to the performance and the pretense. But something had shifted between them, a small crack in the walls they'd both built. The evening ended late, after speeches and silent auctions and endless networking. In the car on the way home, Evelyn kicked off her heels and leaned back against the leather seat. My feet are killing me. You did well tonight, Dominic said. Several people specifically commented on how impressive you were. They were probably just being polite. They don't do polite. They do strategic. He loosened his bow tie. You made an impression. That matters. To you or to them? Both. Back at the estate, they walked upstairs together in comfortable silence. At her bedroom door, Evelyn paused. Dominic? He turned back. Tonight, thank you for having my back in there. I felt like you were protecting me, not just using me. Something passed across his face. Surprise, maybe, or pleasure at being understood. You're my wife, he said simply. Protecting you is part of the agreement. Is that all it is? An agreement? He held her gaze for a long moment. Ask me that again in a few months. The answer might be different. Then he walked to his own room, leaving her standing in the hallway with a racing heart and questions she wasn't ready to answer. The next few weeks brought more events. A business dinner where Evelyn charmed a difficult client's wife. A museum fundraiser where she held intelligent conversations about art she'd only learned about days before. A corporate reception where she stood beside Dominic and projected the image of a united, stable couple. And with each event, the performance became easier, more natural. She learned to read the room, to identify who had power and who merely pretended. She learned to deflect inappropriate questions and navigate dangerous conversations. She learned to be Mrs. Dominic Volkov. But it was at home, in the quiet moments, that things truly began to change. Sophie adored Dominic. She'd drag him to tea parties with her stuffed animals, insist he read her bedtime stories, climb into his lap during movie nights like he'd always been there. And Dominic, dangerous, powerful Dominic, was unfailingly gentle with her. Evelyn would watch them together and feel something twist in her chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. He wasn't supposed to be good with her daughter, wasn't supposed to make Sophie laugh or patiently explain things or remember which princess was her favorite. He wasn't supposed to care. But he did. She could see it in the way he made sure Sophie's favorite cereal was always stocked, in how he'd adjusted his schedule to have breakfast with them every morning, in the way he'd had a swing set installed in the garden without being asked. Why are you doing this? Evelyn asked him one evening after Sophie had fallen asleep between them during a movie. Doing what? Being so good to her. You don't have to. That wasn't part of our agreement. Dominic carefully lifted Sophie, cradling her against his chest. Maybe I want to. Why? He carried Sophie upstairs, Evelyn following. In her bedroom, he laid her down gently, pulled the covers up, brushed hair from her face with surprising tenderness. Out in the hallway, he finally answered. Because she deserves it, and because he stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. Because I never had anyone do those things for me, so I know what it costs a child to grow up without them. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. What happened to you? Evelyn asked again, softer this time. My parents died when I was 8. I grew up in the system, foster homes. Some good, most not. His voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it worse. I learned early that the world doesn't care about you unless you make it care, unless you become too powerful to ignore. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me who I am. He looked at her. But I can make sure Sophie never has to learn those lessons, that she grows up knowing she's protected and valued and safe. Even though she's not yours? She is now. He said it with absolute certainty. You both are. The words should have felt like chains. Instead, they felt like shelter. The breaking point came 6 weeks into their marriage on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Evelyn was in Dominic's home office, which she'd been given access to for the financial work she was doing, when she noticed a folder marked with Marcus's name. She shouldn't have opened it, but she did. Inside were reports, investigations. Details of Marcus's theft, yes, but also something else. Evidence that he'd been planning to disappear long before the wedding, that he'd used Evelyn from the beginning, building the false trail that would implicate her while he vanished. And there were photos. Marcus with another woman, multiple women, hotel receipts, proof that everything he'd told her had been a lie. She was still staring at the evidence when Dominic found her. Evelyn? He stopped in the doorway, saw what she was holding. You weren't supposed to see that. Why not? Her voice sounded hollow. Why keep this from me? Because you didn't need to know. Because finding out wouldn't change anything. It changes everything. She stood, trembling. He never loved me. He never wanted Sophie. We were just tools, just part of his escape plan. I know. You knew? All this time you knew, and you didn't tell me? What good would it have done? Dominic moved closer. Making you relive the betrayal? Showing you proof that he never cared? I was trying to protect you from that. I don't need protection. I need the truth. The truth is ugly, Evelyn. I deal in ugly truths every day, and believe me when I say sometimes ignorance is kinder. She threw the folder at him. Papers scattered. You don't get to decide what I can handle. Someone has to, because you're still defending a man who destroyed you. I'm not defending him. Then why are you crying? Evelyn touched her face, surprised to find tears. She wasn't crying for Marcus. She was crying for herself, for the fool she'd been, for the future she'd imagined that had never been real. Dominic closed the distance between them, and before she could protest, he pulled her against his chest. She tried to push away, but his arms were solid, unwavering. Let it out, he said quietly. Let it all out. And she did. She broke down completely, sobbing against his expensive shirt, mourning not the man but the illusion. The hope she'd carried that maybe she'd been worth loving after all. Dominic held her through it all, one hand stroking her hair, saying nothing, just being there. Being solid and real when everything else felt like it was crumbling. When the tears finally stopped, Evelyn pulled back, embarrassed. I'm sorry, I got your shirt wet. I have others. I shouldn't have. Yes, you should have. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You should cry when you're hurt. You should rage when you're betrayed. You should feel everything you need to feel. I thought I was past this. Pain doesn't work on a schedule. His thumb brushed away a remaining tear. But you're not alone in it anymore. That's the difference. She stared up at him, at this complicated man who'd coerced her into marriage but held her while she cried. Who threatened and protected in equal measure? Who was nothing like what she'd expected? Why do you care? She whispered. Because somewhere along the way, this stopped being an arrangement and became something else. What? I don't know yet. His eyes searched hers. But I'd like to find out. If you're willing. Her heart hammered. This was dangerous. This was exactly what she'd promised herself wouldn't happen. But standing there in his arms, seeing genuine concern in his eyes, feeling safe for the first time in months, maybe years, she couldn't deny the truth. Something had changed. Between the charity galas and the quiet dinners and the moments watching him with Sophie, between the careful respect and the growing trust and the way he'd kept every promise he'd made, she'd stopped seeing him as her captor and started seeing him as something far more complicated. "I'm willing," she heard herself say. Dominic's expression shifted. Relief. Hope. Something almost vulnerable. Then he did something unexpected. He stepped back, putting distance between them. "Not like this," he said. "Not when you're upset and vulnerable. When we cross that line, if we cross it, I want you to be certain, to choose it freely." "You're really going to be noble right now?" "I'm going to be fair. There's a difference." He picked up the scattered papers. "Take the day. Process everything. We'll talk when you're ready." He left her standing in the office, more confused than ever. She'd expected him to take advantage, to use her moment of weakness. Instead, he'd given her space, respect, the very thing she'd demanded from the beginning. That night at dinner, they sat across from each other as usual, Sophie chattering between them about the puppy she wanted to name Princess Buttercup. "That's a terrible name for a dog," Dominic said seriously. "It's a great name," Sophie protested. "What if it's a boy dog? Then he'll be Prince Buttercup." Evelyn watched them bicker good-naturedly, and something settled in her chest, something warm and frightening and real. This was her life now. This estate. This child's laughter. This man who'd blackmailed her into marriage and then spent 6 weeks proving he could be trusted. It wasn't what she'd planned, but maybe, just maybe, it was better. After Sophie was asleep, Evelyn found Dominic in the library with his usual book and fireplace routine. "Can we talk?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, set the book aside. "Of course." She sat in her usual chair, tucked her legs under her. "I've been thinking about what you said, about this becoming something else." And I think you're right. Something has changed." She took a breath. "I don't hate being here anymore. I don't wake up looking for escape routes. Sophie is happy. I'm starting to build a life I actually want. But I'm terrified." The admission cost her. "Because caring about you gives you power to hurt me, and I've already been hurt enough." "I know." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "For what it's worth, you have the same power over me." "I don't believe that." "Then believe this. You and Sophie have become the most important parts of my day. I rearrange meetings to have breakfast with you. I come home early just to hear about her adventures. I find myself thinking about what would make you smile." He held her gaze. "That's terrifying for me too, because I built my entire life on not needing anyone, and now I need you both." The honesty in his voice stole her breath. "So where does that leave us?" she asked. "Wherever we want it to. We agreed to 1 year, but maybe we start treating this less like an arrangement and more like a real marriage? A real partnership. See where it goes." Evelyn thought about the ring on her finger, the name she'd taken, the life they were building. "Okay," she said, "let's try. Really try." Dominic smiled, slow and genuine. "One day at a time?" "One day at a time." He stood, offered his hand. "Want to take a walk? The gardens are beautiful at night." She took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. They walked through the moonlit gardens, talking about everything and nothing. And when his hand found hers, fingers intertwining, Evelyn didn't pull away. She held on. Because maybe, just maybe, this dangerous man with his complicated past and his careful promises was exactly what she needed. And maybe she was exactly what he needed too. The shift was gradual at first, like ice melting at the edges of a frozen lake. Small changes that accumulated into something undeniable. Dominic started joining them for Sophie's bedtime routine. He'd sit in the rocking chair while Evelyn tucked their daughter in, listening to her recount the day's adventures. Sometimes he'd add details Sophie had forgotten, or correct her dramatic embellishments with gentle humor that made her giggle. And then the butterfly was this big. Sophie spread her arms wide. "It was a monarch," Dominic said dryly. "Approximately 4 inches across." "That's what I said. This big." Evelyn smiled, watching them. "I think someone needs to learn the difference between facts and creative interpretation." "I'm teaching her negotiation skills," Dominic countered. "Start with an exaggerated claim. Let them talk you down to something closer to reality." "She's 4. Never too early to learn. After Sophie fell asleep, they'd walk downstairs together instead of retreating to separate corners of the house. Sometimes to the library, sometimes to the terrace, sometimes just to the kitchen where Dominic would make tea with surprising domesticity. "You know how to make tea?" Evelyn had asked the first time, watching him navigate the kettle with practiced ease. "I lived in London for 3 years. You learn or you suffer." "What were you doing in London?" "Expanding my business interests." He poured hot water over loose leaves, "and escaping certain complications here." "What kind of complications?" He handed her a cup. "The kind that are no longer relevant." She'd learned not to push when he deflected. Dominic shared information in careful doses, revealing pieces of himself like a puzzle assembled one fragment at a time. But he was sharing. That was what mattered. 2 weeks after their conversation in the library, Evelyn woke to find a note on her pillow. "Meet me in the garage at 9 a.m. Dress casually. D." She found him waiting beside a sleek black SUV, different from his usual Mercedes. Sophie bounced excitedly beside him, already dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. "We're going on an adventure," Sophie announced. Evelyn looked at Dominic questioningly. "I promised someone a dog," he said. "I keep my promises." The drive took them to a rescue shelter on the outskirts of the city. Inside, the sound of barking echoed off concrete walls. Sophie pressed against the glass enclosures, cooing at every dog they passed. "That one! No, that one! No, wait!" "Take your time," Dominic said. "This is an important decision." They spent an hour meeting dogs. Big ones, small ones, energetic puppies, and calm older animals. Sophie loved them all, but couldn't decide. Then they reached the last enclosure. A medium-sized mutt sat in the corner, brown and white patches, one ear flopped over. She didn't jump or bark like the others, just watched them with soulful eyes that had seen too much. "What about this one?" the shelter worker asked. "She came in 3 months ago, found on the street, pregnant. We fostered her puppies and adopted them out, but no one's wanted her." Sophie pressed her face to the glass. "Why not?" "People want puppies usually, and she's been through a lot. She's shy." "Can we meet her?" Evelyn asked. In the visiting room, the dog approached cautiously. She sniffed Sophie's offered hand, then Evelyn's. When she reached Dominic, she sat down and leaned against his leg with a soft sigh. Dominic's expression shifted. Something unguarded crossed his face as he crouched down, running his hand over the dog's head. "She likes you," Sophie said. "She recognizes a kindred spirit," Evelyn murmured. Dominic glanced up at her, understanding passing between them. This dog knew what it meant to survive, to be overlooked, to carry scars no one else could see. "What's her name?" he asked the worker. "We've been calling her Daisy, but you can change it." Sophie knelt beside Dominic, hugging the dog carefully. "I like Daisy. Can we keep her, Mama? Please?" Evelyn looked at Dominic, who was watching Sophie and the dog with unexpected tenderness. "I think Daisy belongs with us," Evelyn said softly. They drove home with a dog bed, toys, food, and Daisy herself, who sat in the back with Sophie, head resting on the girl's lap. "Thank you," Evelyn said quietly as Dominic drove. "For what?" "For letting her pick the dog no one else wanted. She has good instincts. She saw past the surface to what mattered." He glanced in the rearview mirror at Sophie, who was singing softly to Daisy. "Like her mother." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. That night, after Daisy was settled and Sophie was asleep, Evelyn found Dominic on the terrace with his usual whiskey. "Can I join you?" He poured a second glass without asking, handed it to her as she sat beside him. They drank in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. "Today was good," Evelyn said finally. "Really good. Sophie hasn't stopped smiling. Neither have you." She touched her face, surprised. "I guess I haven't. It suits you, the smile." He set down his glass. "You should do it more often." "Maybe I will, if you keep giving me reasons." The air between them charged with something electric. They'd been dancing around this for weeks, the growing attraction, the building tension, the awareness that hummed whenever they were close. "Evelyn," his voice was low, "I need to tell you something." "Okay." "That night in the library when I said this had become something else, I meant it. But I haven't been entirely honest about what. Her heart stuttered. What do you mean? I mean this stopped being convenient weeks ago. Somewhere between the first charity gala and watching you stand up to Mrs. Ashford. Between seeing you with Sophie and listening to you laugh at something ridiculous, I said. He turned to face her fully. I care about you, Evelyn. Not as an asset or a convenience. As a person. As my wife. Dominic, I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know that my feelings have changed. That when I look at you, I don't see an arrangement anymore. I see... He stopped, seemed to struggle. I see someone I want to build a life with. A real life. Evelyn's breath caught. She'd felt it too, the shift from obligation to something genuine. But hearing him say it made it real, made it dangerous. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. What if we ruin this? What if we try and it falls apart? Then we'll deal with it. Together. He reached for her hand. But I think we owe it to ourselves to try. Don't you? She looked down at their joined hands, at the ring she'd stopped thinking of as a shackle and started seeing as a promise. Yes, she said. I think we do. He stood, drawing her up with him. They stood inches apart, the tension that had been building for weeks finally reaching its breaking point. I'm going to kiss you now, Dominic said quietly. If you don't want that, tell me to stop. She didn't tell him to stop. His lips met hers, gentle at first, testing. When she responded, leaning into him, the kiss deepened. His hand cupped her face, thumb stroking her cheek, while her fingers curled into his shirt. It wasn't like kissing Marcus had been, rushed and shallow and forgettable. This was deliberate, consuming. A kiss that felt like a beginning rather than an ending. When they finally broke apart, Evelyn's heart was racing. Wow, she breathed. Yeah. Dominic rested his forehead against hers. Wow. They stood there, wrapped in each other until the night air grew too cold to ignore. We should go inside, he said. Yeah, but neither moved. Finally, Dominic stepped back, though his hand remained on her waist. I meant what I said before, about not pushing. We go at your pace. What if my pace is faster than you think? Heat flared in his eyes. Then we'll adjust accordingly. She smiled, bold with the knowledge that he wanted her as much as she wanted him. Good night, Dominic. Good night, Evelyn. She walked to her room on trembling legs, touching her lips where his had been, wondering what came next. The answer revealed itself gradually over the following weeks. More kisses, stolen in quiet moments. His hand finding hers during dinner. The way he'd pull her close when they were alone, as if he couldn't bear the distance. But he never pushed for more, never assumed, always asked. Can I hold you? Can I come in? Is this okay? Until finally, one night 3 months into their marriage, Evelyn knocked on the door that connected their rooms. Dominic answered in sleep pants and nothing else, hair disheveled, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked younger, more vulnerable. Evelyn? Is everything all right? I don't want to sleep alone tonight. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Are you sure? I'm sure. He stepped back, letting her in. His room was larger than hers, decorated in dark woods and deep blues, masculine, orderly. But the bed was unmade, books splayed open on the nightstand, evidence that he was human after all. I'm not expecting, he started. I know, I just want to be close to you. She climbed into his bed, feeling bold and terrified. Is that okay? Yes. He slid in beside her, leaving careful distance. More than okay. They lay in the darkness, not touching. This is awkward, Evelyn said after a moment. Incredibly. We've kissed, we've held hands, but lying in bed together feels significant. Yeah. Dominic shifted, and then his arm was around her, drawing her against his chest. She fit perfectly there, her head tucked under his chin, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear. Better? He asked. Much. She'd expected to feel nervous. Instead, she felt safe, cherished, like she'd finally come home after a long journey. Dominic? Thank you for being patient with me. Thank you for trusting me enough to be here. They fell asleep that way, tangled together, And when Evelyn woke in the morning to find Sophie standing at the bedside with wide eyes, she didn't panic. "Mama, why are you in Dominic's bed?" Evelyn glanced at Dominic, who'd woken at Sophie's voice but remained still. "Because sometimes people who care about each other want to be close," Evelyn said carefully. "Is that okay with you?" Sophie considered this. "Does this mean Dominic is really my daddy now?" Dominic sat up slowly. "Would you want that?" "Yeah." Sophie climbed onto the bed between them. "Can I call you Daddy?" Something raw and powerful crossed Dominic's face. "If you want to. If your mother is comfortable with it." They both looked at Evelyn. Her throat tightened. This was it. The final wall coming down, accepting that they were truly a family now, not just playing at one. "I'm comfortable with it," she said softly. Sophie threw her arms around Dominic's neck. "Okay, Daddy. Can we have pancakes?" He hugged her back, meeting Evelyn's eyes over their daughter's head. The emotion there was unmistakable. Love. Real, undeniable, terrifying love. The weeks that followed were the happiest Evelyn could remember. They moved through their days like a real family. Breakfast together, Dominic heading to work, while Evelyn managed her growing role in his company's finance department, Sophie thriving in the private preschool they'd enrolled her in. Evenings were reserved for each other. Dinner, walks with Daisy, Sophie's bedtime routine, and then hours alone together talking, laughing, learning each other's histories and habits. Dominic told her about his childhood in fragments. The parents who'd died in a car accident, the foster homes where he'd learned to fight and scheme and survive. The mentor who'd eventually taken him under wing and taught him business, legal and otherwise. "I don't expect you to condone everything I've done," he said one night. "But I need you to understand why I did it. To survive. To thrive. There's a difference." He stared into the fireplace. "I never wanted to just survive again. I wanted to build something so solid that no one could ever take it from me." "And did you?" "Yes. But it was empty until you and Sophie filled it." She kissed him then, pouring everything she felt into it. Gratitude. Affection. The beginning stirrings of something deeper. When they broke apart, his eyes were dark with want. "Evelyn." "I know. I feel it too." She took his hand. "Come to bed with me. Really be with me. Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He stood, pulling her with him, and led her upstairs. In her room, their room, increasingly, he undressed her slowly, reverently, as if she was precious. "You're beautiful," he murmured against her skin. "You make me feel beautiful." What happened next was tender and passionate and perfect. Not the desperate coupling of strangers, but the intimate joining of two people who'd chosen each other despite impossible circumstances. Afterward, wrapped in his arms, Evelyn finally understood what Dominic had meant about partnership being more lasting than love. Because what they had was both. The partnership they'd negotiated, and the love that had grown from it. But their happiness was fragile, built on foundations that were about to be tested. The threat arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in the form of a phone call. Evelyn was in the garden with Sophie and Daisy when Catherine appeared. Her usual composure cracked. "Mrs. Volkov, Mr. Volkov needs you in his office immediately." The urgency in her tone sent alarm bells ringing. Evelyn handed Sophie to Anna. "Stay here with Anna, baby. I'll be right back." In Dominic's office, she found him standing at the window, shoulders rigid with tension. Two of his security team flanked the door. "What's wrong?" she asked. He turned, and the coldness in his expression made her stomach drop. This was the Dominic from the cathedral. Dangerous, calculating, lethal. Marcus has surfaced. The name hit her like a physical blow. "What?" "He contacted one of my business rivals, offered them information about my operations in exchange for protection." Dominic's voice was ice. "Information he claims to have gotten from you?" "From me? That's impossible. I don't know anything about—" "I know that. But they don't, and neither will the authorities if he makes his claims public." Evelyn's mind raced. "He's trying to destroy me. Even now, he's trying to leverage his way out of the hole he dug, using you as bait." Dominic crossed to his desk, pulled up security footage on his computer. "He's been spotted in the city. We have people looking for him, but he's clever. He knows how to hide." "What does he want?" "Money? Immunity? A way out. Dominic's jaw clenched. And he thinks threatening you will force my hand. Will it? He looked at her, and some of the coldness thawed. Yes, because you're my wife, and no one threatens what's mine. There was that possessiveness again, but now it felt like shelter rather than captivity. What do we do? She asked. We find him before he can do any damage, and we end this. He moved to her, cupped her face. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Yes. Good. I'm increasing security around the estate. You and Sophie don't leave the grounds without a full detail. Anna stays with her at all times. And you, he pressed a kiss to her forehead, you stay close to me. I'm not hiding while you handle this. I'm not asking you to hide. I'm asking you to be smart. Marcus is desperate, and desperate men are dangerous. She wanted to argue, but she thought of Sophie, of the life they'd built, of how much they had to lose. Okay, she agreed. We do this your way. The next few days were tense. Armed guards patrolled the estate. Every car entering the property was searched. Sophie noticed the changes but accepted Evelyn's explanation that they were being extra careful. Dominic worked around the clock, coordinating with his team, following leads, hunting the man who dared to threaten his family. And Evelyn waited, fear coiling in her stomach, knowing that the other shoe was finally dropping. It came on Friday evening. Dominic received a message, a photo of Sophie at preschool, taken from a distance. The caption read, "We need to talk, unless you want more problems." Evelyn saw Dominic's face go white, then red with fury. He went near Sophie, Dominic said, his voice deadly quiet. He put a target on our daughter. Our daughter, not just Evelyn's anymore. What are you going to do? Evelyn asked, though she already knew. I'm going to end this, tonight. He made a call, spoke in rapid Russian to someone on the other end. Then he turned to Evelyn. Stay in the house. Don't answer the door for anyone except Catherine or my security team. I'll have men stationed at every entrance. Where are you going? To meet Marcus. On my terms, at a location of my choosing. He holstered a gun. She hadn't even known he had one, and kissed her hard. I'll be back. I promise. Dominic, I love you, Evelyn. I should have said it before. But I love you and Sophie more than anything in this world, and I will protect you both, no matter what it costs. Then he was gone, leaving her with those words echoing in her ears. I love you. He loved her, and he was walking into danger because of it. The hours that followed were the longest of Evelyn's life. She put Sophie to bed, reading 3 extra stories to keep her hands from shaking. She paced the library. She stared at her phone, waiting for news. Catherine brought tea she didn't drink. The security team reported in at regular intervals with updates that told her nothing. It was nearly midnight when she heard cars in the driveway. Evelyn ran to the door, her heart in her throat. Dominic climbed out of the lead vehicle, jacket gone, shirt stained with something dark. But he was walking. He was alive. She flew down the steps, throwing herself into his arms. Are you hurt? No. He held her tight. Not my blood. She pulled back to look at him. Marcus? In custody. He'll be charged with the theft, fraud, and a dozen other crimes. He won't see daylight for 20 years. Dominic's expression was grim. He tried to fight. It didn't go well for him. You didn't kill him? No. Though I wanted to. But I have lawyers for a reason. They'll handle him legally. He cupped her face. It's over, Evelyn. He can't hurt you anymore. Can't threaten Sophie. Can't touch any part of our lives. Relief flooded through her so intense it made her knees weak. It's really over? It's over. She kissed him, tasting relief and gratitude and love. When they broke apart, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. I meant what I said earlier. I love you. I love you too, she whispered. I think I have for a while now. I was just too scared to admit it. Not anymore? Not anymore. They walked inside together, past the security team, up to their shared bedroom where they held each other until dawn, grateful for survival, for family, for the unexpected love that had grown from impossible circumstances. The next morning, Sophie bounded into their room with Daisy at her heels. Daddy, Mama, can we have pancakes? Dominic smiled, pulling their daughter onto the bed between them. Absolutely. Extra chocolate chips? Yes. As Sophie chattered about her plans for the day, Evelyn looked at the life she'd built from ruins. At the man who'd coerced her into marriage and then spent months proving himself worthy of her trust. At the daughter who finally had the family she deserved. It wasn't the fairy tale she'd imagined. It was better. Because it was real. Messy and complicated and built on honesty rather than illusion. And for the first time in her life, Evelyn Carter Volkov felt truly, completely home. The weeks following Marcus's arrest brought a peace Evelyn hadn't known was possible. The constant tension that had hummed beneath their lives dissolved, replaced by something softer. Mornings became lazy, filled with Sophie's laughter and Daisy's enthusiastic greeting. Evenings stretched long with conversation and stolen kisses and the comfortable silence of two people who'd finally stopped fighting what they'd become. But there was one conversation they hadn't had yet. One promise Dominic had made that hung between them like unfinished business. It came up on a Saturday morning 4 months into their marriage while Dominic was teaching Sophie to ride the bicycle he had surprised her with the day before. "You're doing great, sweetheart. Keep pedaling." Dominic jogged alongside, one hand steadying the seat. Evelyn watched from the terrace, coffee in hand, marveling at the transformation. The dangerous man who'd walked into that cathedral now ran in circles around their garden, encouraging a 4-year-old with infinite patience. Catherine appeared beside her. "Mrs. Volkov, you have a visitor. She's waiting in the front parlor." "Who is it?" She said her name is Jessica Morgan, your friend from before. Evelyn's stomach tightened. She hadn't spoken to Jessica since the wedding, too ashamed to face the friend who'd watched her marry a stranger under duress. "I'll be right there." Jessica stood by the window, taking in the elegant room with wide eyes. She turned when Evelyn entered, and her expression was carefully neutral. "Evelyn, Jessica, I'm so glad you came." Evelyn moved forward hesitantly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either." Jessica's eyes searched her face. "I've been worried about you. We all have. You disappeared, stopped answering calls, and the only information we had was what we saw at that wedding." Guilt twisted in Evelyn's chest. "I'm sorry. I should have reached out. I just didn't know what to say." "How about the truth? Are you okay? Is he—" Jessica lowered her voice. "Is he hurting you?" "No." Evelyn shook her head firmly. "He's not. I know what it looked like that day, but it's not what you think." "Then what is it? Because from where I stood, a dangerous man threatened you into marrying him." "He did, at first." Evelyn gestured to the sofa. "Please, sit. Let me explain." Over the next hour, she told Jessica everything. The debt, the coercion, the initial fear, but also the promises kept, the respect shown, the way Dominic had proven himself day after day. She told her about Sophie's happiness, about Daisy, about the work she was doing and the life they'd built. "So you're saying you actually want to be here now?" Jessica looked skeptical. "That you've fallen for your captor?" "He's not my captor anymore. He's my husband." Evelyn met her friend's eyes. "I know it sounds crazy. I know it started wrong, but what we have now, it's real, Jessica. It's the most real thing I've ever had." "What about the 1-year agreement? What about getting out?" Evelyn had almost forgotten about that provision, the escape clause that had once felt like a lifeline. "I don't want out," she said quietly. "I want this. I want him." Jessica studied her for a long moment. "You really mean that?" "I do." "Then I'm happy for you. Terrified and confused, but happy." Jessica's expression softened. "You look good, Evie. Better than I've seen you in years. If this is what you want, then I support you." Relief flooded through Evelyn. "Thank you. That means everything." They talked for another hour, Jessica filling her in on mutual friends and the gossip from their old workplace. By the time she left, promising to visit again soon, Evelyn felt like she'd reclaimed a piece of her old life while keeping her new one intact. She found Dominic in his office, reviewing contracts. "Jessica came by," she said from the doorway. He looked up. "How did it go?" "Better than expected. She was worried about me." "Understandable. She watched me coerce you into marriage. And now she knows it became something else." Evelyn moved into the room. We need to talk about the agreement. Dominic set down his pen, giving her his full attention. What about it? The 1-year clause, the option to leave with a settlement. Something guarded entered his expression. What about it? It expires in 8 months. I'm aware. I want to renegotiate. He went very still. I see. Dominic, if you want to leave sooner, we can arrange that. I won't hold you to the full year if you're unhappy. That's not what I'm saying. She crossed to his desk, placed her hands on the polished surface. I want to renegotiate because I don't want the clause at all anymore. Hope flickered in his eyes, quickly suppressed. Explain. I want to stay. Not because of an agreement or a timeline, or anything we negotiated that day in the cathedral. I want to stay because this is my home, because you're my husband and Sophie's father and the person I choose to build a life with. She took a breath. I want to be your wife, really, truly your wife. Not for a year, for however long we both shall live. The words hung between them, a vow more binding than the ones they'd spoken under duress. Dominic stood slowly, moved around the desk until he was inches from her. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Because once I know you're choosing this freely, once that deadline disappears, his hand cupped her face. I'm never letting you go, Evelyn. Never. Good. Because I'm never leaving. He kissed her with an intensity that stole her breath, pouring months of restrained feeling into it. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. I love you, he said. So much it terrifies me. I love you too, and we're going to be terrified together. Is that a promise? It's a vow. A real one this time. That evening, Dominic made an announcement at dinner. I've been thinking about something, he said, cutting into his steak with deliberate precision. About our marriage. Evelyn's pulse quickened, but Sophie just kicked her legs happily, feeding Daisy scraps under the table. What about it? Evelyn asked. It started under unusual circumstances. Circumstances that robbed us of certain experiences. He set down his utensils, met her eyes. I'd like to correct that. How? By doing it right this time. A real ceremony. Your friends present. Sophie as flower girl. Vows we both choose to speak. His expression was almost vulnerable. I know we're already married legally, but I want you to have the wedding you deserved. The one Marcus stole from you. Evelyn's throat tightened. You want to marry me again? I want to marry you properly, so that when Sophie asks about our wedding day, we can show her pictures of something beautiful instead of explaining a cathedral and coercion. Sophie looked up, eyes bright. I can be a flower girl? Really? If your mother agrees, Dominic said. Evelyn thought about that day in the cathedral. The humiliation, the fear, the way she'd worn a wedding dress meant for another man and spoken vows under threat. She thought about how far they'd come since then, how much had changed. Yes, she said softly. Let's do it right this time. The planning took 6 weeks. Evelyn wanted something small and intimate, just close friends and family. Though Dominic's version of small still meant 50 guests at a garden venue that looked like something from a fairy tale. Jessica helped her choose a new dress, simpler than the first, but infinitely more beautiful. Sophie's flower girl dress was a miniature version in soft pink. Even Daisy got a special collar with flowers. The night before the ceremony, Dominic found Evelyn on the terrace where they'd shared their first kiss. Nervous? He asked. No? You? Terrified. He smiled, but for different reasons than last time. What are you afraid of? That I'll mess up my vows. That I won't find the words to tell you what you mean to me. He took her hand. 4 months ago, I blackmailed you into marriage thinking I was gaining a business asset. Instead, I gained everything that matters. You're doing pretty well with the words so far. Wait until you hear the actual vows. I've been working on them for weeks. So have I. She leaned into him. Do you ever think about that day? About how we started? Every day. And I'm grateful for it. For blackmail? For the circumstances that brought you into my life. I'm not proud of how I went about it, but I can't regret the outcome. His arms tightened around her. You and Sophie are the best things that ever happened to me, Evelyn, even if it took coercion to make you see that I was worth the risk. You proved you were worth it, every single day. They stood there in the darkness, holding each other, two people who'd traveled from coercion to choice, from arrangement to love. The ceremony itself was perfect in a way the first one could never have been. They stood beneath an arch of white roses in Dominic's garden, their garden now, with Sophie standing between them, grinning so wide her face must have hurt. Evelyn wore her new dress and carried Sophie's favorite flowers. Dominic wore a suit that made him look both powerful and approachable, his eyes never leaving hers. The officiant, a different one this time, chosen together, smiled at them warmly. We're gathered here today to celebrate the renewal of vows between Dominic and Evelyn Volkov. Though they are already married in the eyes of the law, they've chosen to reaffirm their commitment with hearts fully open and spirits fully willing. Dominic went first, pulling a folded paper from his pocket with slightly trembling hands. Evelyn, when I first met you, you were standing at an altar in a wedding dress, crying over a man who didn't deserve your tears. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. I made you an offer you couldn't refuse, and I told myself it was just business. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. I was wrong. It was never just business. From the moment you negotiated your terms with me, demanding respect and safety for your daughter before agreeing to anything, I knew you were extraordinary. You were brave when you should have been terrified. You were fierce when you should have been broken. And you gave me a chance I didn't deserve. He folded the paper, set it aside. I love you, Evelyn. I love your strength and your kindness and the way you see past what I am to who I could be. I love how you fight for what matters and how you've made this house into a home. I promise to protect you and Sophie for the rest of my life. I promise to earn your trust every single day. I promise to be worthy of the choice you made to stay. Evelyn was crying before he finished, happy tears that Jessica dabbed away with the tissue while Sophie tugged at her dress. Your turn, Mama. Evelyn took a breath, steadied herself. Dominic, 4 months ago, you walked into the worst day of my life and made me an impossible offer. And I hated you for it. I hated that you had power over me, that you forced my hand, that you took away my choice. She saw him flinch slightly. But then something unexpected happened. You kept your promises. Every single one. You gave me respect when you could have demanded obedience. You gave Sophie love when you could have ignored her. You gave me space when you could have pressed for more. She reached for his hand. You taught me that partnership is more lasting than passion, that trust is built through actions rather than words, and that sometimes the best things in life come from the most impossible beginnings. I love you, Dominic. I love the man you are when the masks come off. I love how you make Sophie laugh and how you hold me when I'm scared. I love that you saw me at my lowest and offered me not just rescue, but a future. She squeezed his hand. I choose you, not because I have to, but because I want to. Every day for the rest of my life, I choose you. The officiant had to wait for the applause to die down. Do you, Dominic, take Evelyn to be your wife, to love and to cherish, in times of joy and times of sorrow, for as long as you both shall live? I do. His voice was rock steady, his eyes locked on hers. And do you, Evelyn, take Dominic to be your husband, to love and to cherish, in times of joy and times of sorrow, for as long as you both shall live? I do. She meant it with every fiber of her being. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Again. The officiant grinned. You may kiss your bride for the second time. Dominic pulled her close, and this kiss was nothing like their first. This one was filled with joy and promise and the certainty of choice. The guests erupted in cheers, Sophie shrieked with delight, and somewhere Daisy barked. When they broke apart, both laughing, Dominic whispered, Thank you for saying yes, both times. Thank you for asking, the second time. The reception that followed was everything their first non-existent one should have been. Dancing and champagne and Sophie spinning until she got dizzy. Jessica gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. Even some of Dominic's business associates seemed genuinely moved. Late in the evening, as the party wound down, Evelyn found herself alone with Dominic on the same terrace where they'd shared so many important moments. Happy? He asked. Deliriously. Good, because I have something for you. He pulled a small box from his jacket. Dominic, you already gave me a ring. Open it. Inside was a different ring, a delicate band with 3 stones, emerald, diamond, sapphire. Your birthstone, Sophie's, and mine, he explained. I had it made to replace the one I gave you in the cathedral. That ring was part of an arrangement. This one is a gift, a symbol of what we've built together." Evelyn's vision blurred with fresh tears. "It's perfect." He slid it onto her finger beside her original wedding band. "Now you have both, the ring that represents where we started and the ring that represents where we are now. I love them both, just like I love both versions of us." Both versions? The people we were when we made impossible choices, and the people we've become because of them. Dominic pulled her close, and they swayed to the music drifting from the garden. Two people who'd found their way from coercion to choice, from survival to love. Inside the house, Catherine was putting an exhausted Sophie to bed, the little girl still wearing her flower crown and clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Did Mama and Daddy get married again?" Sophie asked sleepily. "They did, sweetheart." "Good, because they love each other now." She yawned. "Mama told me that sometimes people start wrong but end up right." "Your mama is a very wise woman." "I know. And Daddy is brave and strong, and he makes the best pancakes." Catherine smiled, tucking the blankets around her. "You have a beautiful family, Sophie." "The best family." Sophie's eyes drifted closed, even if it started weird. The months that followed brought a deepening of everything they'd built. Evelyn officially became a partner in Dominic's finance division, her sharp mind and ethical oversight balancing his more aggressive strategies. Sophie started kindergarten at a school where she made friends and brought home art projects that Dominic displayed with absurd pride. Daisy grew from a shy rescue into a confident family dog who followed Sophie everywhere and slept at the foot of their bed each night. And Evelyn and Dominic learned to navigate their relationship with the same partnership that had defined them from the start. They fought occasionally, passionate arguments about business decisions or parenting strategies. But they always came back to each other, choosing connection over pride. One evening, nearly a year after their second wedding, Evelyn found Dominic in his office staring at a photograph. She recognized it, their cathedral wedding, the image Catherine had somehow salvaged from a guest's phone. Evelyn in her first wedding dress, Dominic in his imposing suit, both of them looking tense and uncertain. "Why do you keep that?" she asked. He looked up. "Because I never want to forget what you risked for Sophie, what you gave up for her." "I didn't give anything up. I gained everything. You gave up choice. I took it from you." He set the photo down. "That will always be the truth of how we started, Evelyn. I can't erase it. I don't want you to erase it." She moved to his desk, picked up the photo. "This picture shows two people making impossible choices. You chose to give me a way out instead of destroying me. I chose to protect my daughter instead of protecting my pride. We both chose survival. And then? And then we chose each other." She set the photo beside the one from their second wedding, same people, different energy entirely. "Both choices matter, the hard one and the easy one." Dominic stood, pulled her into his arms. "I love you, Evelyn Volkov. Thank you for choosing me, both times." "I love you too, and I'd choose you 1,000 times more if I had to." They stood there in the office where so many important conversations had happened, where boundaries had been set and broken and rebuilt, where partnership had transformed into love. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Marcus hadn't run?" Evelyn asked quietly. "Every day. And every day I'm grateful he did, even though I hate that he hurt you." "I'm grateful too, because that marriage would have been built on lies. This one is built on truth. Uncomfortable truth sometimes. The best things usually are." A crash from upstairs made them both jump, followed by Sophie's voice calling out, "Daisy knocked over my castle! Daddy, come fix it!" Dominic sighed, but he was smiling. "Duty calls. Go, I'll finish up here." He kissed her thoroughly before heading upstairs to address the castle crisis. And Evelyn sat in his chair, looking at both photographs. She thought about the woman in the first picture, standing at an altar in a stranger's house, terrified and trapped. She thought about everything that woman had endured to get to this moment, the fear, the uncertainty, the slow building of trust. And she thought about the woman in the second picture, radiant and free, choosing love instead of having it forced upon her. Both women were her. Both stories were true. The coercion and the choice. The arrangement and the love. The beginning and the continuation. All of it had led her here, to this life, to this family, to this unexpected happiness. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Lunch next week? Want to hear all about married life?" Evelyn smiled, typing back. "Married life is complicated and messy and absolutely perfect. Yes to lunch. Bring wine." Upstairs, she could hear Dominic reading Sophie a story, doing all the character voices while Sophie giggled. Daisy's tags jingled as she presumably settled at his feet. This was her life now. The estate that had felt like a prison had become a home. The man who'd coerced her into marriage had become her partner, her love, her choice. The arrangement born from desperation had transformed into something real and lasting. Evelyn climbed the stairs, following the sound of her daughter's laughter and her husband's voice. In Sophie's room, she found them both on the floor surrounded by castle pieces. Dominic patiently explaining architectural principles to a 5-year-old who was mostly interested in where the princess would sleep. He looked up as she entered, and the love in his eyes still took her breath away. "Castle emergency under control?" she asked. "Crisis averted. Though I've been informed we need a moat." "A moat requires engineering we haven't covered yet," Evelyn said seriously. Sophie bounced up. "Can we get a real castle, Mama? Daddy says he can buy anything." "Daddy exaggerates. Also, we have a perfectly good house." "But no moat." "We'll work on the moat," Dominic promised, catching Evelyn's exasperated look with a grin. After Sophie was finally asleep, her castle rebuilt, and moat plans postponed until morning, Evelyn and Dominic retreated to their room. "You can't promise her a moat," Evelyn said, changing into the silk nightgown that had replaced her old cotton ones. "Why not?" "We have the space." "Because you'll actually build her a moat, and then she'll want a drawbridge. And where does it end? With our daughter having the best childhood imaginable?" He pulled her close. "I fail to see the problem." "You're impossible. You love me anyway." "I do." She kissed him. "Even when you promise moats." They climbed into bed, Daisy settling at their feet with a contented sigh. Through the window, moonlight spilled across the gardens where they'd renewed their vows, where Sophie played every afternoon, where their life together unfolded in countless small moments. "Evelyn?" Dominic's voice was quiet in the darkness. "Do you ever regret it? Any of it?" "Marrying you the first time." "Yes." She thought about it honestly. "I regret that it wasn't my choice. I regret the fear and the helplessness. But I don't regret where it led us. Even knowing everything you know about me now, about my business, my past, the things I've done, especially knowing all that, because it means I choose you with my eyes open, not an illusion, but the real you." She turned to face him in the darkness. "Do you regret it?" Forcing my hand. "I regret the force, but I can't regret the outcome. You and Sophie are the best things in my life, Evelyn. You always will be." "Good answer. It's the truth." They fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd found their way from impossible beginnings to chosen endings, from coercion to love, from strangers to family. And in the morning, when Sophie woke them with demands for pancakes and updates on her moat plans, when Daisy barked at squirrels in the garden, when Catherine brought coffee and the newspaper reported on another Volkov Industries success, Evelyn looked around at the life she'd built from ruins and knew with absolute certainty this was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not because circumstances had forced her here, but because when given the freedom to choose, she'd chosen this, chosen him, chosen them. And that choice, made freely and completely, was worth more than any fairy tale ending could ever be, because it was real.